Want to give a quick shout out to all of my patrons. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. Recently, I asked the viewers of my channel to fill out a brief survey where they would tell me what their favorite fantasy series of all time were, because I wanted to find out what you think the best series are. And so I gave people the option to list up to 10 of their favorite series, and I was blown away by the response. I had 542 different people fill out the survey with a total of 2,042 votes. There were 602 unique series that got represented here, and I'm just so thankful that there are so many people that decided to participate here. So I want to go through here and go over the top 34 of them. 34 because I decided to make the cutoff that I'm going to talk about today any series that got 20 or more votes. So I'm going to start here. I'm going to tell you the rank of the book that got picked, what my personal ranking of that series is, and what Reddit thinks it is. Now, I find Reddit to be interesting here because every year or two they do their own survey that's larger than mine. It has about twice the amount of participants than took mine. And I want to compare these to see which one everybody thinks and talk a little bit about each series. I haven't read all of them, but I've read most of them, so I can talk a decent amount about these. So let's start at the bottom here. At number 32, there's a three-way tie. So the first I'm going to talk about is Warbreaker. This got 20 total votes. It's the 32nd ranked. I personally rank Warbreaker right about the 30th favorite for me, and Reddit thinks of it as the 39th. So we all think it's a little bit better than Reddit is. And Warbreaker, this is written by Brandon Sanderson, and this is a one-off book. And I think most people kind of think of this as his best one-off work. There's also some people that say The Emperor's Soul is probably a mix between the two, and maybe some others that might say Elantris, but Warbreaker I often hear in the conversation. And this is just a wonderful book. I didn't rate it a 5 out of 5, but I really, really liked it. And maybe if I read it again today, I would give it a 5. But it's just a wonderful story with an extremely wonderful magic system that uses a color-based system. We're going to hear about one in a little bit that also uses a color-based system. But it's just very ingenious. I can't figure out how Sanderson keeps coming up with these unique different magic systems. The story's good. I wouldn't say the story's incredible. What is incredible about this series is the finale. In true Brandon Sanderson form, everything comes together for this epic conclusion with a major twist that I never saw coming, but I should have. And I think most people would say that, where it happens and they get that amazing feeling of, wow, that was so well built up, and the clues were there, I just didn't piece them together, and that is the hallmark of a wonderful twist. And it's one of the best that Sanderson has ever pulled off. So also tied for the 32nd place is 𝗥𝗏𝗏. I personally have this ranked as 30, and Reddit thinks it's ranked 25. So Reddit thinks it's a little bit better than we do. And 𝗥𝗏𝗏 is a multi-part series where it's a bunch of different series. They don't all have the same amount of books. Some of them are like 4 or 5. Some of them are a little bit shorter. But in general, the story follows these two friends. One of them's a thief, and one of them's more of a warrior. And they get into these different kinds of adventures. It's just a fun buddy duo adventure story. As the series has gone along, they've jumped timelines. So the first couple series, the first one was like the modern day for that world. The next series was the prequel stories that are still kind of being written. The author kind of jumps between these. Although the first did finish, and I think the first was the best of Michael J. Sullivan's works here. Then he told a story like hundreds, if not thousands of years before this story, like the origin of the world. And then he's telling this other one that's kind of a bridge between that really old one and the more modern stuff. But yeah, they're fun books, easy to digest, not the most like complex series in the world. I wouldn't necessarily think of them as these like grand epic stories. Although I will say that first series ended in classic epic fashion, and I couldn't think of a better ending for a series than that one had. The next is going to be at rank number 32, the Rift War Saga. And I have not read this, so I can't talk a lot about it. But Reddit thinks it's ranked number 45, so you all like this series a little bit more than Reddit does. What I do know about this series is that it's more YA in nature, and it's quite long. I don't know how long the books are, but the series itself is rather long. I was looking it up earlier today, and there's a ton of different books here. And so I do kind of want to, even though I'm not a big YA fan, I do want to check it out. Everyone talks about it. I keep hearing about this series over and over, and I know literally nothing about it. So I wish I could say more, but I don't want to make up stuff. But let's just move on to number 31. And this is Dune. I personally rank Dune as my 33rd, and Reddit thinks of it as the 16th best. So Reddit thinks it's way better than we both do. And I think in part why Reddit had ranked it so high was that when Reddit's poll came out like a year and a half ago, the Dune movie was either just out or really talked about. So it was really on a lot of people's minds. I suspect that if I looked at this poll from a couple years before that, it was quite a bit lower on the list. I've only read the first one. And what I read, I really liked. I think I gave it a 4 out of 5. I listened to the audiobook version, and the audiobook version is amazing. It's that graphic audio style audiobook. I don't know if it was by Graphic Audio, which is its own production company, where each voice actor represents a different character. Normally in a audiobook, you get one voice actor who has to represent everybody, sometimes two, but almost always it's one. But the Dune one that you can get for just the price of any other one gets like a unique one for everybody. It's wonderfully done. I do love the story of Dune, and more than anything, I love the world. The world is just enchanting. For such an older book, it really sucks you in. And just, I can't get enough of that world. And really, I don't know why I haven't continued on with the series. I hear that the next books are even better than the first one. And then I've also heard people that kind of unanimously say that the series kind of goes downhill eventually. I don't know where that breakoff is. But eventually, I do need to keep reading the Dune series because what I read was absolutely wonderful. Number 26 that came in with 24 votes is the 𝐒𝐮𝐲 trilogy. Now, I have this ranked lower. I have this as the 39th favorite, and Reddit has this even lower than that, the 57th rated. So you all think a lot higher than both me and Reddit on this. This is written by James Islington, and I recently read this. I gave it a 3 out of 5. So, absolutely did not love it, but it was good. And everything about it, for me, was just like, it was okay to good, but it didn't do anything that blew me away. Now, I suspect that a lot of people here that have given this a higher rating are rating it because they've finished this trilogy. Because I have heard from everybody that the ending to this trilogy is absolutely spectacular. For me personally, I don't know that I want to keep reading another, book and a half, book and 3/4 to get to that stuff that'll really enchant me. Because what I read, none of it really grabbed me. And I have so many hundreds of fantasy books that I want to read that, I'm not going to just push through and read a series if it doesn't really grab me. But it has that classic feel to it, a journey story where you have somebody who, some traumatic event happens. And I'm sure you've heard of this story before. And they have to go on a quest to solve it. There's so many classic stories that have this as the background. It feels like it borrows a lot from those without feeling like it's stealing from them. I think that's an important distinction. But I hear so many people that say wonderful things about this, and I just wish that I was as into it as the rest of you. The next is coming in, also tied. Looks like there's a 5-way tie here. And this is in the 26th ranked spot. And this is the Powder Mage by Brian McClellan. I have this ranked quite a bit higher than 26. I have this at 19. And Reddit's at the bottom. They have this ranked at number 41. And this has, again, 24 votes. And I just love the Powder Mage. And it's so well done. In part, I think what I liked, I think there's 2 big things I would say about why I am so in love with the Powder Mage. One is the audiobook's wonderful. It's really well done. But second, and more importantly, is it's got all those classic, amazing, different multi-POV story. In a lot of ways, it reminds me of The First Law. It's not as good as The First Law, but it has a lot of those plot points of the story that you want to see that slowly builds up, gets to this epic fashion, deals with a lot of things that you wouldn't expect it to, has this interesting take on, gods and this sort of thing. It's wonderfully done. It covers this time period that I've never read about before, that people call flintlock fantasy. So think of like Napoleonic era, where these characters have like these long rifles that you literally have to put powder in. The magic system is very inventive, and ultimately I think it's one of the most underrated series that I've ever read. And clearly I feel that way when I'm ranking it under what everybody else says. So also tied for rank number 26 is The Wandering Inn. I have this ranked way higher at number 8, and Reddit has it way lower at 158. Super low. Again, I find this to be one of the most underrated fantasy series of all time, if not the most underrated fantasy series of all time. This is a web serial that I keep talking about on my channel, and I'm going to keep talking about as I read these books. It's the longest fantasy series of all time, and it is growing at an insane pace. The author is just incredible. They have grown tremendously as the series has gone along. I have only read 4 extremely large books, and if all of the books were published, which they're not, it's a web serial, so that you can read it all and catch up to current for free on thewanderinginns.com. But the author is now publishing these books 2 a year, so I'm going to catch up probably later on this year, and then read them as they come out. But there will probably be like 30 or 40 of these enormous books out, which is crazy. It's like well over twice the length of The Wheel of Time, which is well recognized as one of the longest fantasy series. This is a lit RPG, where the characters like level up like a video game. When I say that phrase, a lot of people get turned off because I find that a lot of lit RPG is very poorly done. This is wonderfully done, and it will change your entire perspective on that subgenre of fantasy. So absolutely check it out. The next, also tied, is Percy Jackson, and I have not read this. You're going to find a common theme here, that I have not read any of these series that are YA, and Reddit thinks of it quite a bit lower than you do, ranked down at 41. So I can't tell you a lot about this other than I know that it's kind of more modern, like it deals with characters that are living in modern day America. But yeah, it deals with like this, I think, I'm totally going off what very little I've read here, on this kind of classic hero's quest of this boy who's got superpowers, but I don't really want to say much more because I don't really know what I'm talking about here. And the last one, ranked number 26, is Lightbringer by Brent Weeks. This is the closest that all of us think here, because you think it's 26, I think it's 28, and Reddit also thinks it's 28. Lightbringer is a very divisive series because the first book is great, the second book is better, and the third book is absolutely lights out incredible. And then the series kind of drops off a cliff there on books number 4 and 5. I did not think that the last book in the series is as bad as virtually everybody else does. So many people say it just ends horrifically. I am not going to claim that it ends great. It doesn't. But it's not so bad that it has ruined the series for me. I still think it's a good series. It is epic fantasy. The magic system is wonderful. I like the multi-POV aspects here. I like this is the other color-based magic system that I referred to at the beginning of this video. And it's got so many wonderful things here. And again, I would recommend the audiobook. The audiobook, if you can get the graphic audio of it, I got it for free from my library. You can get it on Hoopla. A lot of libraries have Hoopla, and you can get it for free. And graphic audio is just the way to listen to audiobooks if you have the chance. So check out Lightbringer by Brent Weeks. So at rank number 25, with just one more vote here at 25 votes, is The Chronicles of Narnia by C.S. Lewis. I have not read this series, at least I have not read it recently. I read a few of the books in grade school, and I remember so little of it that I don't want to claim that I am able to rank it or really know much about it, other than you know, the basic plot points of The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, which I think a lot of people know because a lot of people, at least if you grew up in America, it was on the reading list for a lot of people to read in grade school. Reddit thinks it's much lower than 25. They have it ranked at 48. But yeah, this is a kid's book. And I started reading this to my daughter actually recently. She was not into it. The writing style is very dated, and it's got a lot of more advanced words that are not really used anymore. But you know, what I remember of it, it was a fun story. You know, it's got these Christian themes to it, which I certainly did not pick up as a child, but apparently it does. And I think it gets more and more as the series goes along. It's quite a long series, but the books are not very long themselves. But it's you know, it's about these kids that, you know, that are playing in a room, and they find, I think they're siblings, and they go into the back of this wardrobe, and they find that it takes them to an alternate dimension in this, you know, fantasy land with this evil witch queen, and they go on tons of adventures. And I think that they keep kind of coming back and forth between modern day and past, or not past, but in this other world. But yeah, I don't know what more to say about it. I didn't even watch the movie. I think they made a movie or two, and then it kind of flopped. So 5 up from that is The Earthsea Cycle by Ursula Le Guin. This is ranked at number 24. I have not read this. This is another YA story. But Reddit thinks a lot of this. They have it ranked up all the way at 17. I think this is was a very, very popular series for people as they were growing up. Yeah, a YA story that I can't really say much about because I don't really know much about it. And I like to go into these videos very fresh and raw without, you know, coming off very produced. And so I didn't go and like memorize a bunch of facts about this. But a lot of people like it. Not so much you though. So coming in at number 23 with 35 votes is Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn by Tad Williams. I have this ranked all the way down at number 50, and Reddit has it even lower, down at number 87. And I got a lot of heat for this because I read it recently, and I didn't love it. I didn't like it at all. In fact, I didn't even finish it. I struggled with this book, and I got so many people saying, like, Matt, you only like modern type of books. You can't appreciate any of the old classic stories. And I don't know if that's true. I do like some older stuff. You know, I love The Black Company. You know, I like the older Discworld type books. But yeah, it's true. I do, you know, have a preference for more modern stories, but this was slow. I like slow books. I think I do. This was very slow. I mean, I read at least 500 pages, and there was only one moment of tension for me as the reader, and that's not enough. And there was no part of the book. I mean, the prose was good. I'll give it that. But not so good that it wanted me to keep reading, even though that I wasn't super engaged with the story. Now, I wish I liked it so bad. Maybe I'll give it a chance again, because I hear that, you know, as it goes along, it gets even better. And the follow-up series to this, I think it's like Ost and Ard or something like that. I hear is even better. So, but yeah, I hear awesome things. I just can't. I'm not on board like the rest of everyone else is. So number 22, coming in at 38 votes, is The Witcher. I think this is one of the only adult series that I have not read here, but I will be reading it in 2023. At least I'll read the first one and see what I think. Reddit has this ranked up at number 20, so a little bit better than you do. And I think the reason Reddit has it up here, and maybe you too, is because of the TV show. The TV show was out as these votes were coming in, and that influences a lot of people. But I hear a lot of good things here. I've loved all 3 of the video games, especially the third. I've played through it 3 times now. It's one of my favorite video games of all time. And the story in the games is wonderful. Now, I know that the books are different than the games. But, you know, I do like oftentimes these kind of shorter stories that deal with this larger narrative. I like this idea of monster hunters in general. I haven't read a lot of books like that, but I am really looking forward to it. And the fact that everybody here kind of thinks quite highly on it makes me even more excited to check it out. So up at number 21 with 41 votes is The Band by Nicholas Eames. I have this ranked quite a bit higher at number 12. Reddit has it quite a bit lower at number 30. And I think not a lot of people know the name, the band, but it's Kings of the Wild is the one that everybody talks about. There's 2 books in this series, and the first one is quite a bit better than the second one. I still like the second one, but the first one is wonderful. The first book is one of my favorite books of all time. Now, I don't have it ranked super higher, although 12 is quite high, because there's not a lot of books in the series, and if you have a lot of stellar books, I'm going to give you a higher score than like a one-off stellar book. But this is so wonderful. I try to recommend this book to everybody. I find it underrated, obviously, with me having such a high score and a lot of other people having a little bit lower. But I love this aspect of these, past their prime heroes that have to come back together to do one last quest. It's got these older vibes to it with this newer feel. It has this play on like 70s rock and roll, which I find very, very interesting and fun. This book is the definition of fun. And if you have not read this book yet, even if you're not into 70s rock and roll, because you very much do not have to enjoy this, you need to pick up this book yesterday. So up to number 19, and this series is The 5 Warrior Angels. This has 41 votes, and I have this ranked quite a bit higher than number 19. I have it ranked number 6, and Reddit has it not even scoring. It is way down. I think they had like 200 books scored, and this didn't even make it. And that is a crying shame to me. Hopefully it shows up. Reddit's going to do another vote here in like 3 or 4 months. The votes are going to come out, and I hope that it rockets up, because Brian Lee Durfee, the author here, deserves all the praise in the world. All 3 of these books are some of my favorite books that I've ever read. This is dark, grim, dark, epic fantasy. It's got an amazing twist on this religion aspect that I find just enthralling. The world is just sprawling and huge, and you just eat it up. The history that goes into this, the characters are just so perfectly well done. The plot's incredible. I think it's the most underrated book of all time. I keep saying that maybe this is, maybe that. No, this is definitely number 1. I think The Wandering Inn is up there. I think that there's some other books that have that title that they can claim are really high up there, but man, The 5 Warrior Angels is criminally underrated, and if you like dark fantasy, you have to read this. If you can't really handle more, graphic, horrible events happening to people, you're not going to want to check this one out. I've gotten some criticism from some people that watch my videos that tried it, and they're like, it's too much. But if you're the kind of person that can't get enough of that, yeah, this is absolutely wonderful. So, ranked at number 18 is Red Rising. This is I had this ranked quite a bit lower, down at 38, and this got 42 votes. And Reddit had it ranked at number 15. So Reddit's got it a little bit better than you and a lot better than me. I liked Red Rising. But I did not love it. And, I thought it was okay. What the follow-up books, so there's a trilogy, the Red Rising trilogy, and then these follow-up books that came out. And I thought that the follow-up book that I read, I stopped reading it, was quite bad. It was a story that I felt like didn't need to be told, because I thought the original Red Rising trilogy ended on a very high note. It ended so well. The ending is the best part of the series. The books are kind of all over the place. You got the first book that is a kind of like a Hunger Games kind of feel to it. The second one is this more like outer spacey feel to it. They are all over the place. But the people that love the series cannot stop talking about it. I wish I was on the same page, but I'm just not. So at number 17, we have a tie. The first I'm going to talk about is Cradle by Will White. I have it ranked up higher at number 10. Reddit has it lower at number 22. But this book is a riser because there's been this author comes out with 2 books a year, so there's been quite a few more books that have been out since the Reddit vote. And it's just a wonderful series, and more people are finding out about it. It's a self-pub book, and one of the more successful ones. It is this thing called progression fantasy. I love progression fantasy. This has a lot of video game aspects where the characters are getting stronger and stronger and stronger to the point where they become overpowered. Now, I find that now that we've gotten to that overpowered stage, I'm kind of like, the same feeling I get in video games when I get too overpowered. I'm like, okay, the fun was in that progression, but now that I'm there, you know, I'm too powerful. But because I didn't love the last book. The last book was like my least favorite of the bunch. There's only one more book that's going to come out and the series will be done. If it ends really hot, then I'm going to shoot this book up on my list. It'll probably be like a top 5 all-time series. But a lot rests in how this last book goes, and I cannot wait to read it. So the other tie at number 17 is the Bloodsworn Saga. I have this ranked a bit higher than 17. I have it up at 13. This is by John Gwen. Reddit has way lower at 121. This is going to skyrocket on the list because the first book had just come out when this list came out. The second book was critically acclaimed, and it's going to rocket up on this list. Probably going to be one of the biggest risers on the Reddit vote. But I'm just such a John Gwen fan. I love this guy. He writes such good epic fantasy with these old feel to it, with a modern spin. He writes the best battle sequences out of anybody in all of fantasy. I just cannot get enough of the battle sequences. A lot of people talk about Joe Abercrombie, who's probably the most popular author who writes good battle sequences, but he is not as good as John Gwen. I love him, and you're going to hear more about him later, but yeah, John Gwen has him beat. And just so many good things about this. And, you know, I think more and more people are coming on to John Gwen and finding out how amazing of an author this guy is. So ranked at number 16 with 52 votes is The Dark Tower by Stephen King. I have not read this. I'm going to be reading this very soon. And Reddit has a little bit lower, down at 24. I'm not the biggest Stephen King fan. I've only read 2 of his books. I haven't loved them. And he writes in a very interesting style where it feels like he doesn't really know where he's going with his stories. It's about the journey with him. His writing style is very strange to me, where he doesn't really plot things out. He just sits down and writes. That feels very strange to me as a fantasy author. You know, I'm used to these authors really plotting out their sequencing. And that's what I find the best authors in the genre to do. He doesn't, but he's clearly extremely successful, but he doesn't just write fantasy books. He writes more thrillers and suspense and horror books. But yeah, I'm interested to see The Dark Tower. I've heard a lot of great things about it. I know Mike's book reviews. It's like one of his favorite series of all time, if not the favorite. I'm a little intimidated by it because I'm worried that I'm going to hate it, but we'll see. But I like complicated stuff. I'm hoping it's a little more complicated and kind of ties some of these other series together, because he's got this like bigger thing he's doing where he ties everything loosely together, not in a Brandon Sanderson way with the 𝐒𝐨𝐲, but you know, a little bit more limited version of that. So, you know, we'll see. At rank number 15 with 55 votes is Discworld. I have this ranked lower at 26. Reddit has it way higher at number 7. This is by Terry Pratchett, and these are comedy fantasy books, and he's the best in the genre. I don't think he has the funniest books out there, because I do think I've read some books that are funnier, but he's the most consistently funny. But his books are more than just comedy. They have philosophical takes on things. He deals with these big subjects. You know, he satires these major things, and he does so in an extremely intelligent way. Sadly, he passed away not super long ago. And he's a wonderful writer. He's written, you know, I feel like 40 or so books. I'm almost to the end of my journey reading his books. I think I have 1 or 2 left. And I almost always like to love them. Not like to love. I range from liking them to loving them. But I also like to love them. I guess both of those are true. So yeah, I don't know what I'm talking about. This video's gone on a long time. I'm starting to talk crazy. But yeah, check out, if you haven't checked out Discworld, you need to start with, I say, either Guards or Small Gods. You can also start with, I think Going Postal is a decent starting point too. But Guards and Small Gods are the traditional starting points. Check them out. They're some of my favorite books of all time. Ranked number 14 is The Dresden Files. This got 72 votes, so quite a bit higher. Now we're getting into a lot of votes here. I have it ranked way lower, down at 42, and Reddit has almost the same as you do. Reddit has it ranked 13. This is by Jim Butcher. It covers the magician detective Harry Dresden. It's got this old kind of noir feel to it, where he's like this old school detective who's crass and solving mysteries. They're mystery books. And I just don't love mystery books a super lot. I never have. I don't know that I ever will. So they're not like made for me. I gave this series a lot of trying. I read like 9 or 10 of these books. I think there's like 16 or so out, and there's quite a bit more planned. And they're all okay. People swear by this. There's a lot of things that turn me off to this series. Like, I don't love the main character. And for a book written in a first-person point of view, and only that point of view, I gotta love the main character, and I just didn't here. But yeah, if you love like a more detective stories and you're a fantasy fan, you've already read these books. And if you haven't, then check them out. And I would suggest the audiobooks. The audiobooks are universally recognized as wonderful. The voice actor for Harry Dresden just does an amazing job. And so you gotta check this out. Even if you read the books and didn't do audio, go back and check out the audiobooks. They're so well done. So, speaking of amazing audiobooks, it ranked number 13 is Gentleman Bastard by Scott Lynch. What I consider to be tied for the greatest fantasy audiobook of all time, tied with The First Law. We all kind of think similar here. So you have ranked 13, I have ranked 14, and Reddit has it ranked number 10. But these ranks are going down over time because, like George R.R. Martin and Patrick Rothfuss, Scott Lynch has not written the next book, and it's been a long time, with not a lot of hope on the horizon. I know there has been some hope recently because, he's talked about having, I think, depression, which I feel very bad about. I don't ever hold it against authors for not coming out with books. I'm not one of those kind of people. You do you. I have tons of books I can read while I'm waiting. But, oh God, these books are good. The first book's the best. The Lies of Lamora is one of my favorite books of all time. It's certainly in the top 10, might even be top 5. And it's just this awesome heist story, and the way it's written is just so good. It's got this more grimdark feel to it. I love grimdark. This little band of thieves is just so well done. It's dark though, and it's got a lot of amazing twists to it. The ending is perfect. Each of the books of the 3 have gone down in quality, but not a lot. The second book is incredible. The third book is very good. So there's a reason that these books are so highly beloved. And yeah, check out that audiobook. You're going to be in love with the voice narrator for this. At number 12 is The Kingkiller Chronicle. I have it lower, ranked down at 21. Reddit has it a bit higher at number 9. And this had 96 votes. And I'm actually in the middle of reading The Wise Man's Fear for my second time. That's the second of the books. There's only 2 out. He plans on writing a trilogy, and the third book, it's been like 11 or 12 years since that second book came out, and everybody's waiting, and there's no hope on the horizon. I think out of the 3 of Scott Lynch, George R.R. Martin, and Patrick Rothfuss there's not even any talk about it being written. So who knows what's going on there. But they're amazing. The prose is the best. He has some of the best prose in all of fantasy. I don't know about the greatest, but it's up there in the discussion for the top 3. He oozes with class in the way that he writes. In fact, when I'm done with Wise Man's Fear, I'm probably going to be boosting this up in my rankings because I couldn't be enjoying my experience more. I'm about 50% of the way through it. I don't remember why I didn't give it a 5-star, because it is higher than a 5-star what I've read so far, and I absolutely loved the first book. So yeah, these are incredible. A lot of people won't read these because they want to wait till that last book comes out, but read it anyways. Don't be one of those people that has to read a book series that's finished. Enjoy books for what they are. I don't want to preach to you, do you, I guess, but you're missing out if you refuse to read this because the last book has no hope to come out, because they're worth it. Ranked at number 11 is The Greenbone Saga by Fonda Lee. This has 101 votes. So the first to break 100 here, you have it ranked 11, I have it ranked number 9, and Reddit has it ranked 30. But this is another riser. The last book in the trilogy came out after the Reddit vote, and it is so good. I gave all 3 books in the series a 5-star ranking. It is the shortest amount of words I could say to describe this is Asian fantasy, the Godfather. I guess I don't need the Asian fantasy Godfather. It's so wonderful. I guess so I love the Godfather. I love mafia stories. Why have more people not written fantasy mafia stories? It's wonderful. Now maybe it wouldn't be as good because Fonda Lee is just an amazing writer. I can't wait to read everything that she comes out with. I know she has, I think Untethered Sky is a book coming out in like a month or 2. I think it comes out like April 9th or so, I want to say. But yeah, these are so good. It's got everything that you would love about The Godfather is here. It's not in the same order. It's not a ripoff. It's a ripoff in the sense that they're both mafia stories that follow a family that's going up against other families. But yeah, oh man, it's good. And if you are somebody that likes completed fantasy trilogies, this just recently got completed. So check it out while it's hot. So moving up to, we're now in the top 10. So The Faithful and the Fallen. I have this ranked way higher. I have it ranked number 3. Reddit has it quite a bit lower, down at 39. So yeah, very underrated. This has 122 votes. This is also by John Gwynne. John Gwynne, the first person on this list to have written multiple series. This is a 4-book series. Then he wrote 3 more books that are in the Of Blood and Bone series, but they're all in the same world. But I think almost everybody that responded to this was talking about those first 4 books. I don't think the next 3 are bad. I think they're a little bit lower quality, but for some reason they're way less heard about than The Faithful and the Fallen. The Faithful and the Fallen is great. It's epic fantasy at its best. It's got this awesome multi-point of view that shows points of views from the good side, and the bad side. And it's got amazing animal companions, which is always an awesome plus. It's got this awesome, religion aspects. I love good religion aspects in my stories. I'm not much of a religious guy myself, but I love when they're played well in fantasy stories. There's so much you can do with these. Even though it's been a concept that has a lot of play in the fantasy genre. But when you can bring something fresh to it, like was done here, it's amazing. The battle sequences are the best. The ending is great. Read this series. Number 9 is Harry Potter. I have not read this series because it's more YA and I don't really read those. You have it ranked a little bit higher than Reddit. Reddit has it ranked at number 11, and this had 142 votes. Quite a bit more than The Faithful and the Fallen at 122. And yeah, I never read them. I know what it's about though. I think everybody does. But it follows this wizard, Harry Potter, who is going to a wizard school. And, it's immensely popular series that was probably the most sales in recent memory for fantasy books. I've watched most of the movies. They're good. I'm sure the books are great. I just never read them. I will be reading them in the future, though. I am slowly reading the first book to my 6-year-old. And she's not into it yet, in part because she wants there to be girls in the story, and in the beginning of the book there's only boys in the story, and she likes girl stuff, and I keep telling her that there is girls in this story, we just got to get there, but she doesn't love it so far. So I think as soon as they get to school and we start meeting Hermione, then she'll be more into it. But we're pushing through, but we don't read a lot every night, so in a month or 2 we'll get there, and then maybe we'll start rolling from there, but we'll see. Number 8 is The Realm of the Elderlings. I have this ranked as number 4. Reddit has this ranked also at number 8. And this is by Robin Hobb. This came in at 156 votes. I adore this series. It's so well done. It's 16 quite large books, big time commitment, and it's a little daunting in the sense that not a lot happens in these books. There is a plot. And it's an engaging plot, but it's not like most of the other series here. In that you read this series because of the character development. You read this series because of the prose. You read this series because of the emotions that this book makes you feel. You're going to cry more in the series than anything else on this list. And if you're not somebody that ever cries in your books, you're going to feel a lot of emotions, whether the tears come out or not. There's a lot of depressing things that happen in this. There's a lot of good things that happen in this. But, you know, Robin Hobb might be the best writer on this list. I love everything that she puts out. But I will say I've only read this series. She's written some other books that I hope to read soon that are not as highly acclaimed, so hopefully I don't get myself ruined on her. But I recently released a video that did a whole overview of this series. Click here to check that one out. And if you don't know about it, watch that video to get a lot of overview about what that's all about and why I love it. Now, ranked at number 7 is my number 1 series, and it is Malazan. Reddit has it ranked at number 12. Shame on you, Reddit. It has 158 votes, and oh man, I love this series so much. It is by far my number 1 series of all time. So Malazan is written by 2 different authors. You have Steven Erikson and Ian C. Esselmont, but the one that everybody really loves is the 10 books called Malazan Book of the Fallen by Steven Erikson. They are complex books that are, you know, the height of complexity. They are deeply philosophical. They are bonkers in their magic and the events that happen in them. It is just, they're so well done. I can't put into words in this short a time to tell you how much I love these and why. But just like The Realm of the Elderlings, I recently did a full series overview that's quite long. Check that out. It'll tell you everything that you need to know about it. It'll give you tips about not being overwhelmed and some reading companion guides that will help you make sense of this story because it is quite complex. Click above to check that out. And yeah, I need more people to get on the Malazan bandwagon. So number 6 is The Wheel of Time. This is by Robert Jordan and Brandon Sanderson. So Brandon Sanderson joins the John Gwynne crew for authors that are on here more than once. And everyone knows what this is about, right? I have it ranked down at number 18, which I still like this a lot, even though it's ranked there. And Reddit has it higher at number 4. Now this is a series getting a lot more play now because the TV shows are out and everyone's talking about them. But this is a great series. It's a more older feel to them. I think they were written in the 80s and 90s. It finished out in the early 2000s. Robert Jordan died near the end of this, and Brandon Sanderson picked it up and wrote 4 more books. He did an amazing job, in my opinion. I thought that his books were the best in the series. This is just an epic fantasy. Tons happens. It's a character that needs to save the world from a horrible evil. Got a lot of the Lord of the Rings vibes to it, although it's not Lord of the Rings. And just overall, great series, extremely epic, tons of characters. Now it's divisive in that I've heard from a lot of people that don't like it, but I've heard from way more that do adore the series and have it ranked, you know, quite a bit higher than number 4. There's so many people that have this as their favorite series of all time for very good reason. And so, at number 5 is A Song of Ice and Fire by George R.R. Martin. I have this ranked at number 7. Reddit also agrees with you at number 5, so we're all on the same page here, right? It got 265 votes, and we're about to see the 5 top series here, all very, very close votes. I don't need to tell you what A Song of Ice and Fire is about, because everyone has seen Game of Thrones. Or not, maybe if not everybody, then I feel like everybody that's watching this. But it's one of the greatest, more modern fantasy stories. It is famously not done. The author didn't come out with another book since the show happened, and the show totally overlapped it. They finished the story, so a lot of people are disappointed. You know, it is what it is. I'm disappointed too, but you know, whatever. Get your money, George. But yeah, they're wonderful. I don't need to go into detail about what this series is all about. Then at number 4 is The Lord of the Rings with 1 more vote at 266. I have it ranked down at number 22, and Reddit has it ranked as number 2. And yeah, I like Lord of the Rings. I just don't love it like everybody else does. My problem with Lord of the Rings is that I read it too late in my life. I read a ton of fantasy books before I read Lord of the Rings, and I think a lot of the people that love this series, it was one of the first introductions to fantasy for them. And they have a lot of nostalgia with it. Now I say that, And a lot of people go, that's not why I love it. And then I say, was it your first fantasy series? And they say, yes, but that's not why I love it. And so I question that claim. But I'm going to get a lot of hate for that probably, but I do. Because while they're very good, you know, they are old and they're dated. And if this series came out today, I don't think it would be nearly even a fraction as popular as it is, because you know, it was like the foundation piece for all of the other stories that we're talking about today. It's the godfather of all of them, and it's the most influential work by far of all time for fantasy, you know, if not fiction. It's just old, you know, it's like, you know, like I think of like Mario 64 as one of the greatest video games of all time. Now, does it hold up to Mario Odyssey? No, not even close. But do I still think of it as a better game? Yeah, I do. But, you know, there's a lot of bias that goes into that, and that when I played it and how much it meant to me when I read it and the influence that it had on the platformer genre and video games in general. And the same is true for Lord of the Rings. Then at number 3 is The First Law. I have this ranked at number 2. Reddit has it ranked as number 6. This is 9 total books. There is a trilogy, then there are 3 standalones, and there's another trilogy. And these are incredible. These must be listened to in audiobook. The narrator is magical in what he can do in changing his voice and just making come alive these different characters. I'm going to soon do a video that kind of outlines this whole series for everybody, like I did with my Realm of the Elderlings and Malazan videos. But they're just so good. They're grimdark. They are wonderful, wonderfully written stories with incredibly well put out plots. The characters are, you know, to die for. You know, it's like one of the most perfect book series that's ever been written. It's by Joe Abercrombie. And yeah, they're so good. And this got 267 votes, just one more than The Lord of the Rings. And so everything's really tight here. But yeah, I can't say enough positive things about the First Law series. And I actually liked the final 3 books more than the first 3. And I think that's an unpopular opinion. I don't know why. I think so many people fell in love with that first series. They're like, how can I like anything more? But yeah, Joe Abercrombie is just a genius. And I can't wait to see what his career has in front of him, because he has more books coming out. Then at number 2 is Mistborn. This is by Brandon Sanderson. It got 1 more vote at 268. I have it down at ranked number 15, and Reddit has it ranked at number 3. They're really good. This book series keeps falling on my list, though, because I read it earlier on in my fantasy career, and I keep reading things that I like more. It's got a lot of YA feel to it, although it's not YA, although maybe it is. It's like a crossover. And the story is just good. The twists are the best. The prose is good. The world is amazing. The characters are just good. The magic is amazing. So it's got all these things that are like top tier, and then several things that are like right here for me. But yeah, there's a reason this series is so beloved. And Brandon Sanderson there's a reason that he is the most popular fantasy author in recent memory. He is just, you know, on top of the world in fantasy. And yeah, I love what he's doing. There's 7 books in the series. There was an initial trilogy, the one that I love. And then there were these 4 other books that I do not love. And I think almost everybody agrees that the initial trilogy is better, but I think way lower on those next 4 books than the rest of you do. But yeah, Mistborn is still going, though. There's going to be 4 different eras here. So there's the first era, which is like way old school, epic fantasy, ancient, old school stuff. Then the next one is kind of like industrial revolution type stuff. The next series is going to be like modern times, and the final series is going to be in the future. And so I love that idea that these series are going to be like going through time, and I can't wait to see what happens. And you know what number 1 is. Everyone knows what number 1 is. And it is Stormlight Archive by Brandon Sanderson. I have it ranked down at number 5. Reddit agrees with you, and it has it at number 1. And it's 270, so just 2 more votes than Mistborn. So it's crazy how we had over 2,000 total votes. In the top 5 series, there were only 5 votes that separated them. That's nuts to me. Stormlight's crazy good. There's only 4 books out in the series. There's going to be 10 total books. it's just wonderful. The world building, the magic, the characters, it's great. You know, it's not complex, although it will feel complex to you if you're just getting into fantasy. But they're wonderful. They're easily accessible. I think if I'm telling somebody to get into fantasy, it's one of the first series that I'll tell them to read because it'll just hook you. There's like this addicting factor to these books. They give you chills. You know, it's this heroic style fantasy that just has the highest of the highs. You will be rooting for these characters. You kind of know that they're going to come out on top eventually, but I don't mind that. You know, I do like grimdark stuff where, you know, you never know what's going to happen, but I also like this stuff where the good guys are going to win, and I'm here for it. I can't wait to keep rooting for them, and I want to see where this story is going to progress because the 5th book's coming out soon, next year, I think, and it's going to end like a major arc, and then the next 5 books will be this other arc, and I really can't wait to see what this final book in this first arc has in store. So there is my list. That is the top 34 fantasy books. Thank you so much for participating in my survey. I'm probably going to do this every year and kind of compare last year to this year and that kind of stuff. I'm really into that. And yeah, I'm just very appreciative to everybody for participating and sticking around this long in the video. So thanks again, and as always, happy reading to you. Thanks again to all of my patrons, with a special shout out to my Ascendant tier patrons, Sky, Russell, Ron Reich, Romeo Mike, CJ, My Book is Lit, and Jamie.